Welcome to a demonstration of air pollution monitoring and sampling. This is a complete knowledge system with newsletters, abstracts, and a networking directory. It has recently been expanded to include water monitoring instrumentation as well as air. For the last 30 years or so, it has covered just the air instrumentation, but is now being expanded. Let's start first with the monitoring and sampling newsletter itself. And we can look at the most recent issue, which would be May 2011. So we get into regulatory issues, and many times we're out in front of those issues. For instance, it was just discovered that some of the ways that the comparison on the global warming potential of methane versus CO2 was done in an irrational manner, and when it's done in a more rational manner, it comes out that methane is actually 72 more times potent than CO2 was global warming potential over 20 years rather than the 100-year period, which really doesn't make sense for comparison purposes. We track regulations around the world relative to monitoring, so you can see that EU legislation is forcing the more scrutiny of the monitoring and control of PM10, which would be particles 10 microns and smaller in diameter. We track new standards for lead smelting, gold ore, gold mine processing. There are going to be regulations for that as well. We do overall analyses, and this is, of course, where a lot of monitoring equipment, both air and water, is used, is in the power industry. And in this particular newsletter, we're pointing out that some of this new information on methane is also affecting and will affect decision-making on coal versus gas over a period of time and result in somewhat more substantial use of coal-fired boilers than had been would otherwise take place. We track the big control system contracts for optimization, including the measurement of gases. We track again. We even have hot topics, and you can actually listen to all the hot topics and view the presentations. That's another big plus of of this. So you're actually having access to several hours worth of presentations with this. We do analyze the various activities of the people in the monitoring and SIMS system. Of course, Thermo Fisher being one of the biggest here, and they have done well this last year. As I said, we're getting into more of water as well as air. So HAC has just made an acquisition in the water area here. SWAN is active in many industries. If you can actually listen to some of our audio interviews with them, and they probably are exhibiting at more conferences around the world than almost any other supplier of dissolved oxygen monitors and other wastewater water equipment. So we are tracking a lot of that kind of activity. And SICK-MIHAC is another company that we're writing about in the newsletter, but we also are providing these links to the webinar recordings that they presented, and you can see there's several of them that they have participated in. You can click right here and then just link and view those recordings, or just see the PowerPoints. So we've tracked the Japanese companies, of course, as well as the U.S. companies. So there's one example of our newsletter. Let's just go to the April issue as well. And we're networking at these various conferences. So This is the EPRI-SEMS conference held in May 2011 in Chicago, and some of the attendees and some of the exhibitors and so forth there. There's going to be substantial monitoring requirements for the Portland Cement Association, and we've actually got a whole webinar on this subject. So we covered it in the newsletter, but we did give you the links that you can go back in and view for instance, the BetaGuard, which is a beta type monitor to measure particulate continuously, and that is going to be a requirement, is continuous mass measurement. And also, it's going to be challenging to measure the mercury. And Bobby Chen of Shaw presented that as well. So you can both hear the presentation and see the PowerPoints if you just want to do that as an alternative. So this is another newsletter there, and then just click on the March newsletter. Gets into some of the regulatory issues, and again, various different EUC insights, for instance, where we actually go into the conferences and report what people are doing, and you can see that the people here from Thermo Fisher, we talked to them at their booth, and a number of the other monitoring type pictures. Dan Keitzer was a speaker there from SICK-MIHAC. So that the coverage is continuing for our newsletter with live interviews and things as well as just the gathering printed information. And we're tracking the various activities in Europe as well. As you can see here, here's the MCERTS, which was just recently held here in May in the United Kingdom, and the exhibitors at that particular show that were involved in the air monitoring area. So that covers the newsletter. I think we also get into the abstracts, and so you can see the abstracts of articles and rules and so forth relative to air pollution and of course now water pollution monitoring. So here's an article in Air Pollution Engineering about the protocol gases, a bunch of emission standards that appear in the Federal Register. So the abstracts are also of considerable use. Now, both the newsletter and the abstracts are displayed all the way back to 1999, and then prior to that you can also access them, and you can do that through the Air Pollution Monitoring and Sampling web. So you can go just to mercury, for instance, or some other subject, and view all the documents that we've written about. So then you can just click on this particular mercury can both be potent and so forth. So this is one of the contentions here. It was written 6 or 7 years ago, but it's probably even more important today because particulate mercury has been recognized to be bigger than people thought it might be. And so going back in this manner is a very useful way to do things. But if you just wanted to pick out that durag, you could, for instance, go back another way then. If you want to just get mercury and durag, you can get a much more concentrated search that way. It's only 55 articles rather than more. So that's another way to access the system. You can go in also by SIC code. You can go in by company. You can go in by geographic area. So if you want to see what's going on in China, you can go in on China or Chile or Canada. Let's just hit Canada and so forth and see articles relative to Canada, and a lot of it would be regulatory and things as well. But you can also search by SIC code. So if you're interested in what's going on oil and wood boilers or wood-fired boilers, you can click on those and see monitoring relative just to that particular industry. And again, these are articles in the newsletter and fact finder type articles. You can search on rigid keywords too, and this can be important because of air quality modeling or toxics or aldehydes or certain things that you want to make sure everything pops up that's correct about that, like the beta gauge monitor and things. It's this particular type of monitor, and this is very convenient to have it pull up just in this fashion with the rigid system. So you have really the rigid system or the free word system to find all this information. So in addition to the monitoring and sampling newsletter and abstracts, we do also have the networking directory. So you can go in on a particular company in ABB Analytical or ABB Automation, or as you can see here, we have tremendous numbers of companies listed. There's 45 pages of these companies all in the business, but you can click on just companies involved in certain products, such as, let's see, airborne measurement, for instance. You could just get companies involved in airborne measurement. So you can narrow the field considerably. So ambient monitoring, asbestos, analytical laboratories, just those companies that are involved as do have like BioTrace laboratories and BCM and so forth here would have their laboratory people. So it's another way to go into it. You can also go in, by country again, and by monitoring companies involved in China and so forth there. So that's certainly another way to access it. So essentially, you have a networking directory that combines with your abstracts and with your newsletter and provides a complete knowledge system with the searches, of course, that gives you the ability to be alerted with the monthly newsletter to get the answers with the search and with the newsletters to get analysis. And for an advancement, certainly, which is the last of the 4 A's, we also have available these recordings, which you can view. So it is a powerful package. We'd be glad to talk to you more about it. It's $500 a year plus $50 per additional person. Again, it's the McElvain Company. You see our phone and email. And then you can get a hold of Denise Flesh, or I'm Bob McElvain, and would be happy to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.